All right, so I've cleaned up all the edges on the pieces that I've cut out, and I've kind of placed them where I want them. And then this is the foot that we talked about. It's going to help hold our frame up. It'll be the stand. So first thing I'm going to do is cut it in half. So diagonally. So I'm going to go from corner to corner and cut it. This is going to create both of the feet that we need for it. So we have the feet. Now if you want texture on both sides, this would be kind of the time to do it. So I'm going to add a little texture to this side. I'm just going to kind of, yep. I like to add a little texture to all the things. Okay, so there's my wacky texture. Now I always get this mixed up, so we'll see how this goes. So this is going to be the side that we attach. It is the long side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make little marks here, because that's how I'm going to remember that that is the side that we're going to attach. And then we're going to cut the bottom, because we want it to lean back a little bit. And if we don't cut the bottom, it's going to stand straight up and down. So we want it to lean back a little bit so our frame is tilted. You could use this side, but then it's almost leaning too far back. So we just want it to be a little bit far back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my ruler, and I'm just going to do, I'm just eyeballing this angle, but I'm just taking a little bit of an angle off the bottom here. And hopefully I can cut both pieces at the same time. Now I stopped before I got too far because I don't want it to pull the other direction. Okay, so I've just taken a little bit back. But this is why I mark up the side, because I always then lose which side it is I'm going to attach to the back. Now, if for whatever reason somehow this piece gets damaged, like the centerpiece or whatever, you can just cut out a rectangle. Just know that your rectangle has to be at least halfway as tall as your piece. Otherwise it will, it could fall over backwards. And then this doesn't have to be like crazy long. You only want this to be like an inch, inch and a half. It's probably more like, mine's more like 2 inches, but that's like, you don't want to be more than 2 inches. It's unnecessary weight at that point. So I'm going to wait until this is nice and leather hard before I attach it. But I'm going to sit here real quick and attach my letters, because I have not attached them yet. So I'm going to take my D, and I'm going to get it wet. And I'm going to use my little trusty fork here and score it up real good. Now remember, I want it to be real nice and scored up here. Otherwise it could pop off. So I want to get it nice and goopy. If I need to add more water, I can add more water. And then the nice part about getting it all sticky gooey is when I go to put it on here, I can see just where I need to score it on here. And then don't forget to add your water. I'm kind of just using one prong of the fork right now. And remember, I cleaned up all my edges on my D already. So I'm just going to kind of press that down nice and firm. And then I'm going to take my wet paintbrush, and I'm just going to make sure that everything is nice and adhered inside the D and everything looks good. And then clean up the edges around the D. All right. And then I got to do my eye, which is very delicate. Very delicate. In fact, I'm going to use my little X-Acto knife here to slip and score this. I'm going to use the dull end and just try to get it real slip and scored here. I think I'm going to kind of do that at a bit of an angle here. Because I kind of want it to be like rugged. Okay, and then once I got that attached, again, take my trusty paintbrush and paint it around it. Get rid of any slip and score marks. And then same thing with my little 2. Use my paintbrush again, get it nice and wet. Make sure you use the, don't put it on backwards unless that's like the intent that you're going for, is it backwards too. Make sure you're putting it on going the right direction. And then clean up around that. And then what I would do at this point is kind of clean up your edges. So you can take your sponge and kind of clean up your edges around the outside. Again, make sure that it's nice and flat. You don't want it to, oops, I'm knocking my little thing off there. You don't want it to warp at all, so you want to make sure that when you're going around cleaning the edges that it's nice and stable. The ink that's on here, it'll just, when we get time to fire them, it'll just burn off in the kiln, so you don't have to worry about any of that. It'll just disappear. Just cracks and stuff you want to clean up. And then once you have all the edges clean the way you want them, then we can attach the feet. Now I still haven't carved in the pieces here that I want to carve in. I figured I'd wait a little bit longer for it to get a little bit more hard. So you can kind of decide how you want to do that. But once I'm ready to attach the back, and I like to make the back almost just as pretty as the front in a lot of sense, because you're probably gonna see it from time to time, and it'll just make it look like a nice finished piece. So these back pieces, now it's going to be kind of sitting up a little bit because of my little doohickeys there. Actually, you know what? I don't want to put those on before I carve, because it turns out that if I have those on there, then I can't carve the way I want to. So I'm going to go through and carve. My little A here. I'm just using a toothpick to do the carving, just tracing over what I've done. And I'm cleaning off the little boogers as I go. Like, I don't want those little boogers here. So you can see that if it were more leather hard, then the boogers wouldn't be as noticeable. Sometimes you can just lift them right off of there. Okay, now the V I was going to actually dig out a little bit, so I think for mine I'm going to use that bobby pin, but let me get my other ones on here real quick. might have to make one more demo to show you how to attach the feet. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if we'll have exactly the amount of time I want, but there's a little booger in that corner. Okay. So to attach the feet, basically I'm just going to take them, and you're going to attach them at the very base, at the very bottom where it's going to stand. This paper's not going to make any difference. Okay, so then you're going to slip and score them attached there. Make sure that you've got it real nice and goopy, otherwise they will not stay. And you might have to put your hand underneath your frame a little bit because, at least for mine, it is a little, yeah, I probably should have let it get a little bit more leather hard. All right. And then you take your paintbrush. You could also add a little coil here if you feel like it's not quite as secure as you would like it. So you're going to clean up the edges. Also clean up the edges of the back of the leg here too. Make it look nice because you will see some of that from the side views. So make sure you just slip and score really good on there and attach it real nice. Make sure you press it on really good. Clean up the edges. Clean up the edges with your paintbrush or your sponge or whatever you're using. And I'll go back through and do some finishing up touches, but that essentially is our picture frame, and you can see how it's like tilted back just a little bit, but it's going to be so pretty like that. And then once we fire these and paint them, hypothetically, hopefully, then we would just tape the picture to the back side. We've tried in the past to do it other ways and it doesn't always work out. So we figured the best way is just to tape it to the back. All right, so then you're just going to let that dry. Clean up little edges as you go.